Endgame and classes, these are the two major strengths of Lost Ark. This video is going to be focused on the endgame. Now, endgame consists of two different types of content. Abyssal dungeons, which is 4-man, and 8-man legion raids. For the duration of this video, I will only be calling them raids unless I need to specify otherwise. They can be extremely mechanical heavy, filled with a lot of attack patterns, scripted events, and even wipe mechanics. With that, they have brought in some of the most unique experiences I've ever had in MMOs. May it be fighting on an arena where you can get knocked off, or turning the game into a 2D side-scroller. The raid experience is extremely fun, unique, and overall just different from anything else I've ever played. It is the major selling point of Lost Ark and why people put up with systems that they might not like as much. Like, a lot of people don't really love honing, but they're willing to go through it because the raids are just that damn good. There are MMOs where you go in, get your gear, and you never look back. This game is not one of them. Raids are your most consistent source of gold. They're also a decent source of materials and accessories, and then some raids have some chase items like a mount, pet, or a high value drop. And this is a very alt heavy game because you assign 6 characters to earn gold through 3 raids a piece per week, which means most people are going to be doing 18 raids a week. So in this video, it's going to be me yapping a lot about major points of Lost Ark raiding and its design, things I like about it, but also some effects that these have on the game and the community. For the experienced players, you're going to know a lot about this already besides my opinions. So if you want to get a little parasocial, give it a listen while you do some chaos dungeons. Now, if by chance you are somebody looking at Lost Ark from the outside, I hope this gives you a good idea why people play this degenerate game for the end game. This video is going to be focused on the raid aspect of the game, and then we'll talk about classes in another video. Now, at first, when getting used to the game, it might be daunting to log in and think that, hey, I got 18 raids to do in these next 7 days, plus your other daily and weekly grindy stuff. However, raid time can actually greatly vary. For example, my initial con prog, that probably took me about 3 nights of doing 2 to 3 hour prog sessions. Now, every week in a 2 to 3 hour window, my static does 6 normal. So in 2 hours, we have gotten 1/3 of our raids done for the entire week. On either week 2 or week 3, we got our Deathless run in Ivory Tower normal. While our first week, our prog week, it was pretty rough. So what I'm getting at is the raids in this game design really reward you knowing the mechanics and be able to do things consistently. With the right group, even without being overgeared, overleveled, or anything like that, you can be in and out pretty quick. But on that topic of being overgeared, since getting into new raid content is very linear with item level, that means that you are always going up. Additionally, every piece of raid has a new power system to it. What this comes down to is 2/3 of your raids you're going to be overgeared for, which means if you understand the fights mechanically and you are overgeared, you're going to go through these other raids even faster. This is a game where you absolutely feel and see your power creep in the game. Now, there was once a raid where it took a bit too long and the community wasn't really happy with it. That was Brel on launch when it was a 6-gate fight, which was 6 bosses. I would say on average that was probably about an hour experience, maybe a little bit longer. So to make Brel a bit more time efficient, they removed 2 gates and made the final gate bi-weekly. They also removed a gate from Triangle too. Vindictus is pretty similar, where you can have raids that can be pretty short if you're good enough, or just overgeared. But on the other hand, if you were to look at World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14, if you look at a full raid, one of the major raids uncut, you're looking at either 1 to 2 hours roughly for a good run, a smooth run. So like Lost Ark and Vindictus, you don't need huge time slots to do a raid. You got like 30-40 minutes before you gotta go. Yeah, you and your boys can go pump out a raid. But what I'm getting at is I like that it doesn't have to be a giant time slot, because they can be quite a bit shorter. It's pretty convenient to be able to work around time and other people. There are 2 design choices for Lost Ark raids that greatly impact raid time that I absolutely love. The first being is there is an extreme lack of trash mobs. Sometimes there aren't even any at all. I simply just do not like trash mobs, and they're just really annoying. Not having them saves a lot of time. And when we do have them, it's not that much of a time loss. And the other great design choice that I really enjoy is the fact that there is little to no prep time between raid attempts, between wipes, between restarts. You can die, revive, and go back in. If we're talking, say, World of Warcraft, you die, revive, or you resurrect, you run back, navigating through the dungeon, avoiding trash mobs, anything that maybe you missed or something that might have respawned. Then once you get back, everybody's got to be there. Then you had to buff up. Maybe you had to eat too. I can't remember if that's something you had to do every pull anymore. But there's an absolute process that you have to do before every pull, which leads to a lot of time wasted, especially during prog. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. Raiding is one of the best things about the game, but because of the time it takes and all the other things you got to do, it doesn't actually consume the majority of your time playing the game, most likely. But again, Brel G1 through 6 shows that time does not equal good. But in these shorter fights, these shorter raid times, you are still given a great fight and great experience, unless you're running Triangle. I fucking hate that place. But I think all this is part of the design, because this is a alt focused game, so they're going to want you to do a lot of raids on a lot of characters, and they absolutely do succeed in that. The raids are just overall top notch, and I enjoy experiencing and doing them on different classes. When it comes to time, I guess the worst thing people talk about is lobby simulator. This is the situation where you're in Party Finder and you're trying to find a group or fill up your party. At this point, this situation of being in lobby simulator is pretty synonymous with a support shortage. I have a video dedicated to supports and why people think they are unrewarding and just not that fun. This results in not enough supports to cover this 3-to-1 ratio of DPS to supports. This results in a situation where some people are stuck trying to get a party for longer than it would take to actually clear the content. The only way to address this scenario, this situation, is to address supports. If you play a support in this game, you basically just get to exist with extreme privilege. So as stated prior, Endgame is either 4 or 8-man content. Coming from games that require anywhere from 20 to 40 people, 4 to 8 is actually a very comfortable size. When it comes to having something like a static, it is a lot easier to organize and plan around 3 to 7 other people, as opposed to say 36 other people. In my core group of players, we have 2 NA, 2 Canada, 1 EU, and 1 Australian. And because it's just us, and as stated prior, reclear content on raids is not that time committal, we're actually able to make it work. Even when it comes to pugging, there's less people to worry about and less chances of people saying that, hey, I gotta go to do something because there's less people. And when it comes to the actual raid itself, they use the raid size to their advantage. There's going to be a lot of major mechanics that give everybody some sort of role to do. There's a bigger sense of agency and also individual awareness, especially since this isn't a tank and spank stand of fire DPS higher game. Since supports cannot spam heals, everybody has to be pretty aware at all times. Because in other games, there might be a mechanic that targets a certain character at random, but in this game, there's going to be a lot of mechanics where everybody has to take part in it. But depending on perspective, there is some negative feelings people have from it. Since there are mechanics that everybody needs to, 1, be alive for, and 2, actually do it. 1 mistake, 1 fail could mean a restart. This is the point where people get angry, they get toxic, this is where blame gets pulled out, which is a good time to move on to. So let's talk about jail. It's a term people use when they're constantly wiping or they're trying to find a group at a later gate because they had a group that disbanded, which is usually due to people wiping. The majority of raids are cleared from the same group from start to finish. So if you are in this situation of being jailed, you have a very low pool of players to pick from and you really just got to take what you see. People do their absolute best to avoid jail, which leads us to our next topic. At the most basic level, gatekeeping is just being very picky and specific about what you're looking for in party members. Because remember, people can see your class, your title, item level, elixirs, armor quality, accessory quality, engravings, gems, bonus damage. Hell, they see your drip and they might not even like that. Lacking in any single one of these could require you not getting invited. But on top of that, you also have to consider that you're competing with a bunch of other people for the same position in the party. So when it comes to pugging, you generally have to go a little above and beyond. The idea is if they take the more invested looking, the more hardcore looking people, the less of a risk they will be. However, that is a major flaw and just absolutely not true. You will see people on item level probably out damage people who are way above item level and they will outlive them. Gatekeeping is just extremely flawed, but it is a result of the overall game design of raids. Because people have a lot of raids to run, they want to run them quick. They don't want to be jailed by somebody who is dying to a mechanic. They're going to do whatever they can to try reducing the risk. It is a player solution to those issues. But even if those weren't issues, there would still be gatekeeping because it is unavoidable. It would just be less. Additionally, I think people see it as a sense of fairness in the party. They want people who are as invested or more invested than them, which more invested makes a contradiction. Your average person just doesn't want to really carry strangers. And the overall topic of fairness is a pretty popular thing in this space, the MMO space, because of pay to win. So busing. Busing in short is a paid carry through content. I've talked to some people who do ride the bus, and this is what they've had to say. Some people do it just to get the title, because again, the title is one of the things people look at for gatekeeping. But in terms when I talk to people who do Brawl 1-2, they're doing it for getting a piece of gear or a couple pieces of gear, able to hone that up to be a little bit higher than the minimum idle level, or also just be prepared for G1 through 3. And there's actually a fair share of people who ask the bus drivers if they can just play along with them so they can actually experience the raids and mechanics for themselves in a less stressful environment than just pugging. And then there's the last group of people. These are the people who run it as a gold running character, but since the bus costs less than what they make, they're still willing to run it because they're still doing it at a profit while doing absolutely nothing. And in the case of buses for alts, I hate to say it, but it kind of makes sense for bro. If you have your full relic power pass character, you just boost it to 1490 and then ride buses to get to 1540 so you can just go straight to ancient gear. Because of fians, you're probably saving a good amount of gold paying for the buses instead of a placeholder gear set. Now, when it comes to difficulty, I think we're in a pretty good place. I don't see content in a state where it is either too easy or too hard. Yes, there will be people who say one another, but they won't be the majority. And I think having the hardest difficulty hell mode being something that you don't do for gear, really good. You do it for the statue, you do it for the title, you do it for the challenge. Overall, the raiding experience needs to have some sort of challenge to it. Otherwise, nothing in Lost Ark really feels that rewarding for what you do, because most of your progressions and all your side systems and all that stuff, that is RNG related. Raid clears is one of the few things in the game people can feel like they earned. The only other thing that really exists in that field is if you're like one of the 5 people left doing 1v1 PvP. When it comes to content getting nerfed, I'm kind of a mixed bag. As they keep on adding more to tier 3, it's more and more content that newer players have to learn, and it might be too much for a lot of people. But at the same time, you can kind of see it as devaluing their raids, so it's really opinion heavy on this one. I think a route I would rather see is something that Memo has talked about in the past, which like Guardian raids, adding limited revives. This way you could leave the punishing mechanics in, but still have a little room for error, but they still get to deal with and learn the harder mechanics and then show improvement by eventually just not dying during it, while not dragging down the entire raid with you when you die. Now, additionally, for the topic of difficulty, most of the content you can actually end up in the same endpoint, playing it on either normal or hard. Generally how it goes is you will reach your full set or your full upgrade on either difficulty, but it will be slower when you do it on normal. Now, what bothered me about the design is it's not on every raid. For example, Bro used to have a relic set and an ancient set. Now they removed the relic set and just did the ancient set. They moved the ancient set down to normal. So it almost seemed like they were trying to streamline it and make all the raids similar in that sense, but they didn't do that to elixirs. I suspect they will do this in the future, but they don't want to do it now while the system is semi-new. So a little spicy take here. Jail can actually be pretty good for you, because you're being put in a situation where you're feeling forced that you have to do better, unless you're one of those egomaniacs who think that they're playing perfectly, which I can tell you you're not. But what I'm getting at is you can learn a lot more in that kind of situation than you would on a really easy reclear, which is kind of how I see Hell mode too. You're like willingly putting yourself in jail. Since you cannot outgear the content, you kind of have to learn the fight and really have to squeeze in as much damage as you can when you can, which will overall just make you a better player. Or POV. The downside to Hell mode is, however, it can be pretty expensive when it comes to consumables. On the plus side, you can craft those consumables and sell them for a pretty good amount when these Hell modes come out until the rest of the community catches on to that, and then tank the price. Rip Atrofins. Now, for fun, there was a topic rolling around in one stream. It was either Kotti or Stoops, where people threw out the idea that normal and hard should be the same item level. At first, that sounded really good to give people the option of just going straight to hard, but the more I thought about it, that wouldn't work. Every single support would just be doing hard mode. Normal mode runs just wouldn't exist because, again, there's just not enough supports. So yeah, that is my rant on Lost Ark raids, going over some of the major design choices and things I love about it, but also some of the consequences and results that the design has had on the community and how they handle it. Because how severely we take jail, busing, gatekeeping, these are all symptoms and things that trickle down from the overall design of the game. I personally love the raiding in this game. Fulton and Clown are still some of the best raids I've ever experienced in MMOs in general, and I don't think they're going to be beat anytime soon, if ever. Now, is Lost Ark Endgame repetitive? Yeah, of course. You're running the same 3 raids 6 times a week every week. But let's be honest, that's how MMOs are. They are meant to be repetitive. They are meant to give you a habit. But I do enjoy experiencing every raid on different characters. But I also think having a static, having people to play with, having people on voice that you can talk to during the raids and just communicate makes it that much more fun, really. And I do see where other people are coming from when they say that they want more other things to do in Endgame, but at the same time, I spend enough time in the game doing things like Chaos Dungeon and Guardian raids. And if I'm being honest, I don't really know what else they could do. Yes, people talk about solo content, and then we have mini games and stuff like that in the past, and like events. So what other kind of end games are you guys interested in? What have you experienced so far in other games that you like? But also, let me know what you like and dislike about Lost Ark raiding in general. There's definitely going to be some hindsight moments where you guys are going to mention something that I'm like, damn, I really should have talked about that. I was going to talk about that. How did I forget talking about that? Because that really seems to be how my experience with MMO content is. But thanks for watching, like, sub, and all that other YouTube stuff.